world, you want to shoot not in auto mode? I'm going to show you in the fastest video possible how to get your settings and why your settings should be where they are. So what I wanted to do with my Canon M50 Mark II is just show you what those settings look like. If you're reading it and you're new and you need to know how to work with manual, I know it can be a little bit confusing, so let me just show you with the camera that is actually very easily click and I can kind of show you everything. So first of all, we're set on manual, which you can see right here, manual, and that's where you want to start. Now, I mentioned that the first thing that I always want to shoot is or adjust is my aperture, because the aperture is the thing that's going to change the way that the photograph looks the most. So that is absolutely number one. Don't watch this video, well, you can watch it in a second, but first, if you feel like making any money at photography, let me tell you about Wirestock. If you've ever been interested, like I have, about selling your video, photography, illustrations, or vector in stock, but didn't want it to take so much time adding in all those keywords and descriptions, Wirestock helps you out with a process called Easy Submission, which helps you describe and tag all your photos without you doing the work for free. No fees, no subscriptions. They make money when you do by helping you submit your art to the biggest stock libraries there are, such as Shutterstock, Adobe Stock, 123RF, Alamy, Dreamstime, Deposit Photos, and Pond5, all from a single account. Wirestock has higher than the standard royalty rates when you're comparing all the other services out there. Wirestock recently launched mobile apps for iOS and Android devices, so us creators can earn with our mobile content even easier. You can get started right away with Wirestock. I just finished making an account and uploading my first 100 photos in the time it took to set up this light. So head to bit.ly/Joy Wirestock and experience for yourself the easiest way to get your art on the largest stock websites and more. Back to the video. So your aperture, if you're looking right here, is the one where it says like 5.0 or something along those lines. Maybe it just has a point something, and that's gonna be your clue. So if you go ahead and tap on that, this has a slider with all of the different possibilities here. I like to shoot at a very shallow aperture. So a shallow aperture, which means your blades are wide open. It's gonna give you that blurry background type feel. So that's what I'm going for. So you can see this is set to 2.0 or f2. The second thing I like to set is my shutter speed, and that's where when you're looking at this, you will see some kind of like fraction here. So it's what it is, it's a fraction of a second. That's what that means. And again, we have the slider on this camera. So I want to set my shutter speed to be something that is, what's the easiest way to say this? Appropriate for the type of camera that I'm using, because if you go too slow and the closer you get to 1 second, so that's like a 30th of a second is closer to 1 second, and a longer shutter speed than, let's say, 200th of a second, right, because that's a smaller fraction, you have to think of what you're photographing. If what you're photographing is moving, or if you are moving as a photographer, maybe you're moving around really fast, or if you have a really long lens on, so like a zoom lens, then you're gonna want that to be a faster shutter speed. So all those things make a difference. A lot of these cameras have image stabilization in it, but that's kind of irrelevant if you're moving around a lot and your subject especially is moving. So this is a 22mm lens on a crop sensor. I don't like to go below 250th of a second if I can help it when I have a moving something in front of me. If I'm photographing a kid that moves like a lot, then I would like to be at like 500th of a second. But I'm about to photograph myself, so I won't move. So what I want to do, I'm gonna go ahead to that fraction right there, boop, and I'm gonna go to 200th of a second. So that looks good to me. All right, so now the last thing I do is set my ISO. And if you're a photographer that's been working for a while, or maybe you've seen some YouTube videos, you're thinking, why would your ISO be last? You want that to be really low. And that's true, you do want it to be really low because it's gonna give you a cleaner image, it's gonna give you a less grainy image. But with all the technology, not only in the cameras today, but in the post-processing software like Capture One or Lightroom, you know, you can take a lot of that noise out, and that's why I set it last personally, because I can't add depth of field later or take it away. I mean, you can, but that takes forever. and you can't change motion blur afterwards either. So to me, the grain is like the least of all of the evils that you're gonna be able to work around at this point in time with the technology that we have. So that being said, now I'm going to go to the ISO, and with this camera it does say ISO, so that is right there, and I'm gonna go ahead and click it, and I'm just gonna take a look and see where I am, hey, and set it to like where I think it looks good. So I'm just gonna go here, and you can see as I go in a higher number it gets brighter, and as I go in a lower number it gets darker, and I think right about there, maybe a little lighter, yeah, there is, oh, that's too light, and that's too dark. Get right in the middle. There we go. That looks good to me. And that ended up being 500 ISO. So now I can go ahead. I'm just gonna flip this camera around. I know you can't see, but now I can see myself and I can take a picture in manual mode. It's very exciting for you, I can tell. All right, and then we're gonna look at this picture. I'm gonna hit play, and this is a good exposure. This looks good. Okay, now another thing you can do is you can hit info here and you can take a look at the histogram. So this histogram is super duper important right here. And that's gonna tell you like what you see, like what the picture sees right there. So all the way on the right-hand side, you can see there's a lot of brightness is over on the right and darkness is over on the left. There's no like correct histogram. I know people tell you there is, but there's not. It depends on what you're photographing. It's a representation of what you're photographing in a luma scale. So there's a lot of white in the scene, my shirt, the wall behind me, and a lot of light color. So of course I'm going to see peaking of that light right there, versus on the other side, there's not a lot of dark. I don't think there's anything black other than this mic and the dark, like my dark hair and my darker eyes. So that's what you're seeing over there. So this looks good. The only point you might be concerned here is if you're photographing something white, like this scene, and then the peaking is happening on the bottom. That means there's no white really being represented, at least in this scene, and the peaking is here. Then you know you need to change your exposure. So I hope that was helpful, just the quickest of all time explanation on how to shoot in manual and how I get my settings. So I hope that was helpful. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, ring the bell, all the things. See you next time.